Good morning, everybody. Every single day we talk about the comeback in New York City. We talk about the recovery, and you can see it. It's happening more all the time. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to New Yorkers who are doing the right thing, getting vaccinated, bringing the city back, bringing the jobs back. It's happening all the time. Now, we know that recovery has a lot of different elements to it. It all begins with vaccination. There's so many other pieces. We've talked a lot about public safety. Public safety is crucial to recovery. Recovery is crucial to public safety. We have been for years and years the safest big city in America. You saw the statistics yesterday, how we compare to other major cities. We are getting stronger all the time. A lot to do, but we're getting stronger all the time, and a lot of big changes are being made to keep us safe, make us safer. What we have focused on from the very beginning over these 8 years, strengthening the bond between police and community. Talk to leaders, talk to experts all over the country. They say the way forward is a new approach to policing that focuses on that bond. That's what neighborhood policing is, recognizing that so many of the solutions to crime, to violence, are at the community level. And when police and community are unified, in dialogue, on the same page, amazing things can happen. When there's a rift, when there's a division, we can't keep people as safe as we need to. So neighborhood policing, we proved for all the years before the pandemic that we were able to increase trust, increase unity and understanding and dialogue, and drive down crime at the same time. We did it with a lot fewer arrests, by the way. So we know what works, and we need more of these kind of innovative approaches, more of these reforms. What we've done even just this year, the new focus on involving the community in the selection of precinct commanders has gotten incredibly positive response and appreciation from community members. That they're going to have a say in determining someone who's really important to their lives, their families, their neighborhood. The investment we've made in violence interrupters, stopping crime before it happens, has been extraordinarily successful. We're going deeper and deeper with that. What we talked about just last week, having a process to reach everyday New Yorkers who engage their local precinct and see how it went, to make sure that they get the opportunity to offer their feedback, their responses, so we can do better. Literally the question from the NYPD to the people they serve, how did we do? Fundamental customer service idea. It's never existed previously in the NYPD, but it's going to be the future of the NYPD. Now we're talking about another really important step forward. It is simple, it is basic, it is powerful. The notion that when you go into a police precinct, a time when you often really, really need help, or maybe a time when you're just looking for a way to get involved and work with the police, you need a positive response. You need to be respected. You need to be heard. That hasn't always been the case. Today we're talking about a brand new approach where community members will lead the way, helping fellow community members to have a positive experience when they go to the police precinct. Now look, I can tell you I've listened to stories for not years, for decades, from New Yorkers, every walk of life, every race, every neighborhood, bluntly, who have told me, as much as they really respect the NYPD and they want the NYPD to succeed, too often their own personal interactions have not been positive. People going into a precinct, calling a precinct, getting a response that wasn't respectful, often gruff and dismissive. People really trying to work with the police but feeling like they're being pushed away. There's other times, of course, when people have had great experiences. And I want to thank every single police officer who has done the right thing and treated the public with respect every single time. That's a lot of our officers. It's not all of them, though. But the sad reality is so many people who just were trying to exercise their rights to get information or file a concern or a complaint, find out what's happening with a case, they were treated in a way that doesn't have anything to do with customer service or respect. That's not acceptable. And it's not going to build the bond we need. Today's NYPD realizes that that's a historic problem and that it must be addressed. And from Commissioner Shea on down, there's been a commitment to a new customer service model. And even the very fact that we're talking about customer service in the context of NYPD, that's revolutionary to begin with. So now a new approach where community members will help their fellow residents to navigate the precinct, to have a positive experience, a community guide, who will be the first point of contact when someone comes to a precinct. Someone they can relate to, someone who wants to make it a positive experience. I want you to hear now from the person who's really taken this idea and built it out with passion, with commitment. She is someone who understands, and we've had this conversation many times, that if we don't build that better bond with communities, we're not going to be able to be as safe as we need to be. There's so much up ahead in the future in New York City where it could be much, much safer. But we got to get this piece right. And she has been a paradigm shifter, because she has not accepted the old way and said, you know what, we can get this right. So this new community guide approach is happening in large measure because of her initiative. My pleasure to introduce our Chief of Patrol, Juanita Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, New York City. And you summed it up quite nicely, Mr. Mayor. I think about how far we've come. In 2020 of September, we launched a customer service survey, and that was how did we do. And now, just last week, I was here mentioning about the customer service text survey that now exists, allowing us to reach a broader amount of community members. Anyone that files a complaint with the New York City Police Department will have the opportunity to receive this text message and give us their feedback. And now I'm excited to announce that we're here today, and we have implemented probably the most important component to customer service, that human element, and that's our community guide, AKA Precinct Greeter. Often enough, like the mayor said, we get complaints about individuals walking into a precinct, which can be very intimidating in nature to begin with, and not being greeted in a timely fashion, in a courteous fashion. So now we have someone that's going to be there Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. In November, every precinct will have a community guide, and that will be the point of contact. And their sole reason for existing is to address everyone in a timely and courteous manner. And, this position is proof of the NYPD striving for excellence in the area of customer service. Customer service is going to have a great effect on the growth of this department, and customer service is definitely probably the main component for strengthening community relations. And with that being said, the NYPD is striving for customer service, great customer service, to become the fabric of the NYPD. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Chief, again, this is literally music to my ears, and I think to a lot of New Yorkers. Just hearing the words customer service, a senior leader in uniform saying customer service has to be what the NYPD is about, that is, again, a paradigm shift. It's one we need. Thank you for leading the way and making it happen. And now I want you to hear from one of the first guides. We're going to have community guides in one of our precincts. This is an amazing family story because she will be the community guide in the 2-5 precinct. Her mother will be the community guide in the 2-6 precinct, and her sister in the 2-4 precinct. The Smith family obviously committed to making it work, to bringing the community in, to getting people the answers and the respect they deserve. This is coming to life right now. So you're going to hear from a community guide for the very first time in New York City, an NYPD community guide who's going to create that customer service model before your very eyes. My great pleasure to introduce Rebecca Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. My name is Rebecca Smith, and I am an NYPD community guide. I started my position on Monday, and I grew up in the Bronx, New York, where I still reside. During my initial time working at NYPD, I started as a custodial assistant, working at the 2-5 precinct. During COVID, it wasn't easy, but with the help of my peers, I was able to take on this position and learn my way around pretty quickly. A year and a few months later, I was told about the community guide position. And because I like to help everyone, I chose to apply. Then I told my mother and my sister about the position in which they applied. We all got hired for this community guide position. And then we all did training at sorry, I'm a little nervous.
It's okay. Take your time. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Then we all did our training at the police academy. I was fortunate enough to stay at my current precinct, a place I had gotten to know so well. My mother and my sisters are also community guides within the Manhattan precincts. My mother taught my sister and I to be courageous, respectful, and the importance of kindness. I'm excited to start my new role. I am excited to start my new role. I really see the value in this. It's helpful to have a precinct greeter because sometimes entering a precinct is very intimidating with seeing uniformed. Seeing someone that's like them and can relate to them will put them at ease while getting them the help that they need. My hope is that I can make a difference. In my time with the NYPD, I'm learning that there are so many opportunities. I'm really excited for great things to happen with this community guide position. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. You did great. This is your press conference debut. But you just said something really powerful. You're right that when people come into a room of folks all in uniform, it's a different environment, people can easily be intimidated. And they need a friendly face. They need someone who's going to help them understand how to get what they need and start the conversation off right. So thank you to you and the whole family for being a part of this big change. Now, everyone, I want you to hear from one of the real voices of conscience in this city, who's going to talk about why this matters so much. She has led on so many fronts, it would take a long time to summarize them all, but most recently, leading the way on the public engagement that led to a major series of police reforms in the spring. And that public engagement was intense and exhaustive, and it brought up crucial ideas like the public playing a role in the selection of precinct commanders and efforts to diversify the leadership more deeply in the NYPD, right down to the precinct level. She's led the way on a variety of reforms. She's leading the way now on one of the most dynamic efforts at change in this entire country with our Racial Justice Commission, an incredible voice for change in this city. My pleasure to introduce Jennifer Jones Austin.
Mayor de Blasio, I'm excited to be with you all, and more importantly, I'm excited about this new initiative. I have to commend you and Chief Holmes for bringing this to this moment, for creating this opportunity. And I just want to say to Ms. Smith how excited I am to see her there and to hear what she and her family are going to do for this city and so many others. When we were engaging in the work of building out a reimagining NYPD plan with the commission, with the police commissioner, and with Chief Holmes, with you, Mayor de Blasio, and with others at City Hall and in the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, when we talked with people around the city about their experiences, what we repeatedly heard in the communities where people felt challenged in their relationships with the police, what we repeatedly heard was that they wanted to be seen as individuals and human beings, as having needs that sometimes they talked about, not everybody, but sometimes some talked about asking the police to come into their communities to help them with problems, and sometimes finding that they were being experienced as the victimizers rather than the victims. What this initiative does, what this new program does, putting community guides in the precincts, it says to individuals and families around New York City that when you go into the precinct and you have a concern, you have an issue, you are being challenged, that there's somebody who's going to be there to receive you, to hear what you're saying, and to greet you with compassion and concern. It's not to say that there aren't police officers who do that, but knowing that there's someone in the precinct who's there to receive you is going to make all the difference. You mentioned that right now, you mentioned that I engaged with the work around, bettering the police department and working very closely with Chief Holmes has been an honor and a joy. I'm also, because of you, doing some work with the Racial Justice Commission. And we've heard through that work as well that people, it's not that they don't want the police, they just want to be in greater relationship and partnership with the police, and they want the police to see them and hear their needs, particularly in the communities where where we've seen an abundance of policing, and there has been conflict and tension. And so creating this new initiative, this program, placing community guides in every precinct where individuals and families will know that there will be somebody there who can hear them and hear their concerns and engage with them in the most compassionate way, I think it's going to make all the difference. And it really is foundational change, because we all know that, whenever we're dealing with something, to be seen and to be heard is everything. And that's what you're doing with this initiative. So I can't thank you enough. I can't thank Chief Holmes enough. I can't thank Rebecca and her family enough, and all the others, the police commissioner, as well. I can't thank all of you enough, because this is a critical step in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you. You're always pushing us to do more, and that's the only way to do more if someone's pushing you to do more. So thank you for your leadership, and we're going to keep coming up with more and more reforms, more and more changes to get us where we need to go. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Someone else who's always pushing us to do more and do better. I want you to hear in a moment from the chair of the Public Safety Committee in the City Council. I want to give her credit. She has served her community at the local level as a community board manager before she became a council member. She understands, life is lived at the neighborhood level. If you have a good experience with your precinct, you're going to want to work with the police. If you have a bad experience, it's going to create a wedge. You don't want that. You need that communication and connection. I also want to say we were together on Friday for the opening of a violence interrupter office, amazing organization, 100 Suits in Southeast Queens, that are doing powerful work. And Councilmember Adrian Adams spoke about what is necessary to achieve public safety and how it's a different reality than a lot of what we were told in the past. She spoke very, very passionately about how much of the solution has to come from the community level. And if the community is given that respect and empowered and supported, and then also is in dialogue with NYPD, that is the way forward. But we're going to have to work on that literally person by person, block by block. So my great pleasure to introduce the chair of the Public Safety Committee in the City Council, Adrian Adams.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me on this morning to speak about this terrific initiative, the Community Guide. It's just so important, as you said, for there to be continued engagement, positive engagement between community and law enforcement. And what we found in the past, as was said, is that too often you have one negative impacting upon a negative. So you have individuals coming into precincts with trauma, bringing trauma into police precincts with them, and then possibly being met with misunderstanding, sometimes disrespect, and sometimes the feeling of not caring. So we have trauma on top of trauma building in those cases. But this initiative is going to move that needle into more of the reform that we want to see. And that is that positive connection. I thank Ms. Smith so much for being here and for her family for being participatory in this initiative. It's going to make such a difference in all of our communities. For people coming into precincts, to see people that live in their community welcoming them into the doors of a precinct. That intimidation factor is going to be substantially lower, which we need it to be. Hopefully the trauma will dissipate as we need it to be, and the understanding, the connection, and the consistency of that interaction will be positive, which is what we're looking for. We're looking towards moving, as you know, one of my goals as chair of the Public Safety Committee has been to create and enhance reforms to make things like this more possible and palatable to our residents that interact with the police on a daily basis. So we thank you so much for moving that needle. I thank especially Chief Holmes, who has been instrumental since day one, especially in her new assignments, but even more than that, preceding her new assignments in the past, just having her experience, her wisdom, and her know-how on the job has been monumental for us. I want to thank also Jennifer Jones-Austin, who is such a vocal leader in this city and helping us to move forward in the progress that we need to move ahead. So thank you again for having me on. Thank you again for this initiative, and we will continue to work together in making these vital, important reforms in police safety to keep our community safe for the citizens of New York. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Member. Really, really appreciate you being a part of this initiative, and we're going to make some good things happen. As I said in the beginning, we talk about recovery every day, and that means we talk about the fight against COVID. And for months and months and months, every single day we talk about COVID. But COVID needs to step aside for a moment here, because it's time to talk about another health reality, and one we know well, and one we know how to fight back really well, the flu. It's flu season coming up again. It's time for everyone to do what we know how to do to fight back the flu, which is to get that flu shot. Let me tell you, it is more important than ever, because last year we were really, really worried about COVID and flu at the same time, fighting a two-front war and all the problems that could bring. But guess what happened? We sounded the alarm. We told New Yorkers, get that flu shot. Record number of New Yorkers came out. 35% New Yorkers more, 35% more came out for the flu shot in 2020 than in 2019. That changed the whole reality. And that made last year, thank God, a much better year. It was actually a year we saw many fewer flu cases, which is something we really, really needed in the context of all the other challenges we were facing. So a new campaign starts now. Catchy slogan, wrong time for the flu, right time for the flu shot. And you can find, there's so many places you can get the flu shot. You can find it the same way you find the sites for the COVID vaccine, vaccinefinder.nyc.gov. Everyone needs a flu shot. Really particularly important if you're medically vulnerable or if you happen to be older. But Zoomers need it too. So parents and young folks, remember how important it is to get that flu shot. Protect everyone. It's easy, it's fast, it's safe, it's effective. I'm not just going to talk about it, I'm going to do it, but I need a great doctor to help me out. Let's see if we can make a reservation for a doctor really quick. Oh, look, here's one now. The city's own doctor is here to help me, Dr. Dave Choksey.
Good morning,
sir. You walk around with that all the time? Is that just something you do, Dave?
Thank you for rolling your sleeve up.
I'm going to do this right, Dave. I'm going to do this right. I'm going to roll this up the whole way. I think you should just wander the streets with your tray. That'd be really good.
Whatever it takes, sir.
Whatever it takes. That's hands-on medicine. All right. We're going to prove how easy and fast it is. Okay, as per usual, when we do these live shots, I'm experienced at this. I know that Dave's really good at it.
Not my first time, sir.
Not your first rodeo, Dave.
All right, how about vaccines work on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Vaccines work. Okay, so I said vaccines work, and I believe it. Obviously, I've talked about it every day. But Dave, when are you going to give the shot? I'm waiting. When are you going to get it? Good. It was funny, right? That was pretty funny. Okay, while Dave is patching me up there, thank you, Dave. I want to remind everyone again the slogan: wrong time for the flu, right time for the flu shot.
You're all set, sir.
Thank you very much, brother. And everyone, let's go out and do that now. Good time to just get out of the way. You get this free button, which is, wow, look at that button. That's a large button, entirely for free when you get your shot. That's great. And everyone, we really want to make sure people get this out of the way now. This is the right time to do it. And now let's go to our indicators. Thank you, Dave. Number 1, very good number today, because we keep seeing the mandates are having their impact. The vaccine doses keep climbing. 11,481,147 doses from day 1. Number 2, daily number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for suspected COVID-19. Today's report, 117 patients. Confirmed positivity, 23.81%. Hospitalization rate, this is, again, we keep coming back to this one, going down again. Every little tick downward helps us. Today's number, 1.03 per 100,000. Why? Because of vaccination. That's what's driving that reduction in the hospitalization rate. And number 3, new reported cases on a 7-day average. Today's report, 1,170 cases. Again, look at that downward slope. Vaccination is working, mandates are working. Let's stick with it. Now, I'm going to do a few words in Spanish, and we're going to go back to the flu shots, because again, we want everyone to go out and get these now. Help protect this whole city, protect your family. Ahora es el momento de protegerse a sí mismo y a su familia contra la influenza. Protéjase contra el COVID y el flu. Póngase sus vacunas hoy. Así puede mantenerse seguro y saludable. With that, let's turn to our colleagues in the media, and please let me know the name and outlet of each journalist.
We'll now begin our Q&A. As a reminder, we're joined today by Chief of Patrol Juanita Holmes, by Test and Trace Director Dr. Ted Long, by the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice Director Marcos Soler, and by Senior Advisor Dr. Jay Varma. The first question today goes to Andrew Siff from WNBC.
Andrew, you out there? Andrew Siff, can you hear us? I don't think he can. Let's try again.
All right. Second question today goes to Roger Stern from 1010 Wins.
And we'll go back to Andrew. Roger.
Two questions.
Hey,
John,
Roger.
can you hear me now, Mayor?
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm good, thank you. So I have two questions. The first about this new program. Sketch out for me. I walk into a precinct to report an issue or have a problem. What happens the moment I walk through the door?
All right, well, we got two experts here. So we're going to have Chief Holmes start and just literally describe the experience. And then, Rebecca, if you'd like to add anything, you will be welcome. Okay. Chief Holmes, you start.
Yes, so depending on the time of day, as I said, the hours would normally be 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. And naturally, that'll be the determination of commanding officer. If he has more of a uptick in community members coming in around, let's say 4 p.m. after school hours, then those hours can be adjusted. But you're going to be greeted in a timely fashion, courteous manner, and you're going to, they're going to inquire, why are you there? And once you give them that information, they can navigate you through the different departments within that precinct, whether it's domestic violence, community affairs to get a permit, or simply to retrieve an accident or complaint report for whatever reason.
And Chief, I'm going to ask you a follow-up, and then we'll see if Rebecca wants to add anything. So if someone is hesitant or concerned and they're not used to dealing with the precinct, does the community guide stay with them while they meet with the officers if they need that?
If they need it, we prefer for the community guide to be at the entrance of the precinct to assist other people coming in. But by no means, it does not negate the fact that all police officers are greeters. And, it just brings a warmer, kinder, friendly, gentle environment when you're met by someone. And usually a lot of our community guides are from the actual community. So it creates that comfort. But if they need assistance and it makes them feel more comfortable, by all means, if that's what they require to get through the systems within a precinct, then I don't see why they couldn't.
Excellent. And I want to see if Rebecca wants to speak about anything else from your experience or your training about how you would approach things.
Yes. So how I would approach it, usually when people do come into the precinct, I personally, tell them good morning, how can we help you? And sometimes the precinct is busy, so it'll seem like the officer is, kind of not trying to hear you, but there's a lot going on, so they're trying to deal with it. So it's like when I'm there, people are able to talk with me and have those conversations. So it just kind of makes their time go by, and it doesn't feel like they're just waiting there, and I'm reassuring them, okay, the officer will be with you, he's getting your paperwork, he's doing this, so it just gives them that reassurance to keep them at ease because they already came in, a little upset because of what's going on. It's not a happy thing when they're coming into the precinct. So that's pretty much about it. I think it's more with us being there, it just helps them, be at ease and make things move smoother.
Nicely said. Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I want to talk about a report that there may be people who are members of the Oath Keepers in either the police or other forms of the criminal justice system. How concerned are you about that, and what will be done?
Yeah, I'm real concerned, Roger. Look, organizations that supported the insurrection on January 6th in Washington, organizations that are trying to destroy our democratic freedoms, undermine our nation, undermine our people. That's very, very troubling to me that anyone would want to be a part of that. And we need a full investigation, and there will be a full investigation. to find out exactly if any officers are involved, how are they involved, what did they do, what did they say, if it's the kind of thing that would disqualify them from serving. As you see in the discipline matrix, there are very, very clear penalties for that kind of activity. So that investigation is going to happen right away, and we're going to definitely keep you posted on what comes from that.
The next is Chris from the Daily News.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Hope your arm is feeling all right.
Doing good. Dave Choxey knows what he's doing. Thank you, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to ask you about your proposal from the other week about hiring private security on Rikers Island. Not only is COBA saying that that violates the law, but I'm not sure if you saw, but Harry Nespoli, the chair of the Municipal Labor Committee, said this morning that such a privatization would violate state and city law, and that you would know this if you had done your necessary analysis. So I'm wondering, are you backing off this idea of hiring private security? And if you're not, in what sort of capacity would you hire it?
We're moving ahead. I think the world of Harry Nespoli is someone I respect a whole lot. Well, of course, we've done our homework. The positions that the private security will fill are absolutely within the law. They are not the positions that involve dealing directly with inmates. And look, if the union leadership says something, the truth is usually the opposite. Not Harry, I'm talking about COBA. COBA has played such a dastardly role in creating this crisis and harming their officers, their members. I think the members are going to realize that at some point and express themselves. But the bottom line is it's absolutely appropriate when a union has helped to create an environment where people called in sick when they weren't sick, which is not appropriate, harmed the officers, created a less safe atmosphere for everyone. We're going to do whatever it takes to fix that, and this is a legal and smart way to address it. Go ahead, Chris.
And just to follow up on that with a twofold question, if you're saying that this is a legal way of hiring private security, what roles will they fill that would not violate the law? And then secondly, if I could ask you to comment on, we're hearing that just 63 recruits for the Correction Officer Academy showed up for training this morning, even though you and Commissioner Schiraldi had suggested that as many as 600 officers would be starting next month. So just wondering if you have any reaction
We'll
to that.
get you an update. We had a lot of demand for those opportunities to work for corrections. It's a very meaningful job. It's a job that provides a lot of opportunity, a lot of security and long-term security, and folks want those jobs. I believe the academy is being staggered, but we'll get you the exact updates. On the previous point, the work that they're doing, again, will not be the work involving direct contact with inmates. One of the examples we're working on now is perimeter security. That is a discrete function that fits well with the use of private security. We would much rather be doing what we've done historically and using the correction officers, but our officers have to show up and do the work, and too many have done the wrong thing. Most have done the right thing. Vast majority have done the right thing. But the ones who are not showing up are hurting their fellow officers, and we're going to take resolute action to fix that.
The next is Katie from the city.
Hey, good morning, Mayor de Blasio. How are you doing?
Good, Katie. How you been?
Good. Good. I wanted to ask you about an announcement you made yesterday about the pandemic response. And you said it'll be housed at Columbia with, I guess, some involvement with CUNY, but why not just house it at CUNY altogether? Give that money to the City University, which, as you know, has been really a backbone for the city, especially working class. Why give it to, an Ivy League university and have it like that?
Well, I think it's about the work, really, Katie. Fair question, but it's about the work. The Columbia School of Public Health is pretty legendary for what they have achieved and the leadership they have there, and we're talking about an institute with the focus of stopping the next pandemic from happening. Globally important work. CUNY's going to play a big role, but Columbia is just really well positioned to lead the effort, and we want the very best team we can put together. Go ahead, Katie.
All right, the CUNY Graduate Center has a great school of public health too, but I'll move on. I wanted to ask you about an upcoming event at Madison Square Garden this weekend. So Joe Rogan, he has a podcast. He has been very vocal about his thoughts and opinions about vaccine mandates. It's unclear if he's vaccinated. He will be performing at MSG, but because of the rules, and I guess there's some sort of loophole in it where visiting people do not have the same requirements as someone like Kyrie Irving, who I know you've been outspoken about. Are there any concerns? It's no mask if fully vaxxed, but are there concerns about if this will be checked properly and if MSG will know who's who? And just wanted to get your take on that.
Look, everyone should get vaccinated. Just general principle, everyone should get vaccinated. I think MSG, very professional operation, they're going to follow the city rules. I don't consider a loophole. There's a recognition that if someone comes through briefly, it's a different reality than someone who works regularly in a location. But no, I think Madison Square Garden will handle it the right way. Vaccine only, that's the most important issue in terms of all the people who are coming. And I think it can be kept safe for that reason.
The next is Emily from New York One.
Hi, Mayor de Blasio. A question about the community guides, the greeters at NYPD precincts. What kind of training is involved? I imagine they would confront some people who are very aggressive or antagonistic. Additionally, is this a job that's union with a livable wage and benefits? I'll
turn to Chief Holmes to talk to you about the training, talk to you about the approach. I want to say I think every question is valid and we want to go through it, but I really want to make sure we don't lose the forest for the trees. The idea that we're bringing the community into the precinct, we're welcoming people, we're supporting people, again, that's revolutionary, certainly compared to what I've seen and so many New Yorkers have seen. So getting this up and running, making it work is job one. We'll sort through a lot of things, as with every new initiative, we'll sort through them over time. But starting something different right away, that's the urgency we felt. Chief, would you speak about the training and how people are prepared?
Great question. The training was a 5-day training at the police academy. And one of the first things that were taken into consideration was the safety of the community guides. That was encompassed in the training, teaching them how to react if someone does come in that's pretty irate. But also you have to remember there is always a station house security in every precinct in New York City. So they're usually the first person that anyone coming into the precinct will meet.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Emily.
Right. This is on Rikers, sir. When you authorized 6A releases in light of the COVID pandemic, it was 296 people on a wide range of offenses, felonies and misdemeanors. And the data from your Office of Criminal Justice shows that they're not reoffending at any higher rate. Why is that your concern now?
A variety of reasons. Fair question, Emily. But first of all, look, we have a criminal justice system. We start with the assumption that because there is due process, if someone is sentenced, there's a reason they're sentenced, and the sentence is appropriate. We don't start with the assumption, we go through all that to not have the sentence. When we had a profound sort of world-altering moment in the spring of 2020, and we absolutely felt that if we didn't get people out, we would have a vast COVID problem. We made a decision then to do something exceptional. This is a very different environment now. We can address the challenges, and Rikers are being addressed as we speak. There are some people who can be released appropriately. We're going to do that, but there's others who we would not release if there's concerns about public safety. We are working every day to turn the corner on some of our public safety challenges. That's in the front of my mind, and the effect on communities all over the city. So even though I hear you that there's been some good results previously, and I'm heartened by that, right now we have to factor in both what we're trying to achieve in Rikers and what we're trying to achieve in communities. It is not the same situation as 2020, and we got to strike the balance, and that will be done literally on a case-by-case basis as we make these decisions.
The next is Elizabeth Kim from Gothamist.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Elizabeth, how you been?
Good. I have a question question about Oath Keepers on behalf of my colleague George Joseph, who wrote that story. Has the NYPD ever done a comprehensive investigation of all of its members in terms of potential ties to extremist groups?
Well, I'm going to turn to the chief who may have information I don't have. Elizabeth, I wouldn't, I mean, I hear your question, but I'd be a little careful because the notion of looking at an organization with 35,000 uniformed officers and 15,000, I think, plus civilians, and sort of a broad gauge investigation of everyone, something I hear that immediately is troubling to me. Some people know my parents had really bad experiences during the McCarthy era when people were being questioned for anything and everything. I think part of who we are as Americans is to be really, really careful how we cast aspersions and how we use the power of government to investigate. I think the way to do it is to follow specific leads and follow them very, very aggressively. Again, anyone who's involved in an organization that's supporting violence against the people, against the government, or racial or ethnic violence, they don't belong in the NYPD. But I want to do that based on individual cases, and I believe we're going to find, thank God, very, very few, if any, of those kind of cases. Chief, you want to add?
I will. So initially, when an officer is hired for the NYPD, the applicant processing division does a very thorough investigation on any of our applicants that chooses to join the department. But I have to agree with the mayor, which is smart. I really truly believe anytime we get any information, just like we get with other individuals, whether it's related to terrorism, things of that nature, intel, we follow the lead. So if someone is, if we receive an allegation of someone being affiliated with those particular groups, then that would definitely automatically trigger a thorough investigation related to that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
My second question is on the extreme weather task force report you put out earlier this week. It recommends restarting the Flood Help New York program, which calls for resiliency audits and retrofits, but it doesn't call for it to start until 2022. I'm wondering, in light of the fact that there are homeowners now who are facing repairs, renovations that they have to do now, why wouldn't that program start immediately?
Well, it's a fair question, Elizabeth, and I have our team follow up. I will say to you, I think part of the immediate reasoning here is that homeowners who had an impact from Hurricane Ida, we're getting direct support to right now through other means, including the FEMA support, the SBA loans, et cetera. So we'll have the folks who worked on the report talk to you, but I think that's the likely answer, that there's a variety of immediate initiatives to help them, literally days, weeks, to get that support in their hands. And then the report's talking about some of the bigger things we have to do going forward.
The next is Dana from the New York Times.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Yesterday, Donovan Richards and Leroy Comrie said that they'd like to see Governor Hochul hold off on building the LaGuardia Air Train. I'm curious, what would you do with that project were you governor?
Well, thank you for the theoretical question. Dana, you're always working every angle, and I admire that. Let me speak as mayor. The project, look, all along, we were dealing with an aberrant situation. A governor who would not work with anyone, who created a culture of fear, who rushed through projects, whether good or bad. And now we get a chance to look at this thing in the cool light of day. We're actually, there's a much more mature, humane, decent environment where we can look at this and decide on the merits, does it make sense? I think there's some virtues to the project, but my question has always been, is there a better way? Is there a way to give people a more direct ride to the airport that would be even more appealing and get more and more people to use mass transit? Let's do that assessment now. It doesn't have to take forever. Let's reassess it and figure out if there's a better way, let's go in that direction. If there's not, go with the original plan. But it's not, It's no longer an imperial building project. Now it can be looked at objectively. Go ahead, Dana.
Thank you. On a different note, about Vision Zero, given that this year is poised to be the deadliest year on record during your administration, from a street safety standpoint, is it still possible to end traffic deaths by 2024? And was it ever? Did you believe it was possible in 2014?
I believed in 2014 that we could fundamentally change the reality. And, the sky was the limit of what we could do. And I think the first few years of Vision Zero encouraged that, meaning that we saw a lot of evidence. You saw those first years. The numbers went down, thank God. Lives were saved on a huge level. And I think we can get back to that. Do our previous timelines fit when we were interrupted by a global pandemic? No. People, very sadly, Dana, went back to their cars. I don't blame them, but I'm just saying it's sad for all of us. A lot of folks felt they had to go back to their cars, even though they had used mass transit a lot. We got to reverse that. Subways are now over 50% of ridership. That's great. We got to keep going. The recovery will get us there. Vaccination will get us there. We will get people back out of the cars. But does Vision Zero work? Of course it works. It's seismic. It's an extraordinary success that's been, unfortunately, upended by 2 years of aberrant reality from a global pandemic. I know it's a success in part because of the lives saved, but I also know it's a success because the Biden administration is now using it as their template for the whole country. So we're going to get it back on track. We're going to save a lot of lives. And over time, I think we can get to a very, very different place by really consistently applying the Vision Zero principles.
We have time for two more for today. The next is Mark Healy from the Rockaway Wave.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Hey, Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I have a question about our upcoming city council election. As you know, Eric Ulrich is term limited out, and District 32 is up for grabs. Will you be making an endorsement for the Republican candidate Joanne Ariola or the Democratic candidate Felicia Singh before the election?
Well, thank you for asking, Mark. Don't have any plans to be involved in that race, but I know certainly all your readers, and you guys do a great job reporting the news in the community. Your readers will be informed and they will make their own decision. Go ahead, Mark.
My other question is about the program that you announced today with the customer service with the NYPD. Certainly, it's incredibly important because there is a growing number of complaints about non-contact, with some of the precincts, especially the two, not so much the 101st, but the 100th precinct here. There's been some complaints about, rising, quality of life crimes that aren't being addressed. Has that been discussed to be Is this going to be at every single precinct, or is it just going to be at a select few to begin?
Well, I'll have the chief go over the rollout. The goal is absolutely every precinct. The whole customer service concept has to be applied for all NYPD officers, all precincts. But Mark, you make a really good point. I talk to so many New Yorkers, and I get the calls in every Friday morning on the radio and everything else. What I am hearing is exactly what you said. Folks want to see a focus on a lot of the quality of life issues. It's not shocking that we've had to deal with everything related to the pandemic, including some of the impact that we've seen on violence, although I'm very happy to say, we'll talk about this more next week with Commissioner Shea here, that we are clearly, consistently reducing some of the impact of the pandemic in terms of violence, in terms of shootings, et cetera. But the quality of life elements really, really matter. We've talked a lot lately, for example, about the motorcycles and dirt bikes, et cetera, and some of the issues that's creating in communities. So people have to be comfortable if they call the precinct, if they walk into the precinct, whatever their concern is going to be treated with respect and like it's important, not blown off, not treated like, you have to wait. And I believe that the leadership at NYPD feels this in their bones, how important it is to build that bond and really respond to those concerns because they matter, but also because every time you respond, it deepens the relationship. So that is absolutely the goal. Chief, why don't you speak about how the rollout's going to go and what your vision is?
So the rollout began this week. Half of the precincts currently have their community guides. And by the beginning of November, all precincts will have at least one community guide. There are going to be commands that require 2 community guides, depending on the volume of the people that come into the precinct, or even just the volume of the size of the particular precinct. But when you speak about quality of life, that is something that dear to my heart, dear to the commissioner's heart. It is a huge part of whatever stat we're having, whether it's CompStat or neighborhood stat. Because why? It's customer service. People make calls, they want you to respond. So we currently have in place a 311 app. A lot of those calls go through that system. Hundreds of thousands of calls come through that system to us. So the officers have the availability of looking at their cell phone, looking at the app. Any calls coming in their particular area, they can shift through and pretty much address those calls. But more importantly, a lot come into the command and have to be assigned to a particular sector in that area. So we have implemented things from having a supervisor oversee that particular area just to have the reassurance that people are getting the response that they need. It's an area that we are growing and improving in, and I know how much it means to everyone to have their concerns met with. So it's a challenge, but we're definitely focused and moving in the right direction.
Amen. Go ahead.
Last question for today goes to Nolan from The Post.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Nolan, can you hear me? No. Nolan? Nolan. There we go. Try again. Nope. No, we're not hearing you. You got someone? Do you have?
Ground control.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Perfect. How are these greeters different than desk sergeants, or are they just going to be walking people to those grumpy and hairy desk sergeants?
Well, I think your question answers itself. I understand desk sergeants have a lot to cover and a lot going on. I think Rebecca said it well. Sometimes people are legitimately busy, juggling a lot of stuff. It's important to have someone who talks to them, explains the process, works with them, gives them reassurance that their issue matters. But really, for a lot of people, and I'll let the chief speak to this as well, for a lot of people, going into the precinct is a challenging experience, and maybe an experience they're having in a really difficult moment. If all they feel is like they kind of got pushed aside, that's not going to get us where we need to go in the long term. So having an actual, focused human being who can really stick with you and get you the help you need that's crucial. Go ahead, Chief.
So they're completely different, actually. A desk sergeant has the privilege of having the ownership of being responsible for anything that goes on in that particular command. And I remember that position oh so well. Equally challenging, not just with the people that work from him, outside units coming in, processing arrests, ensuring prisoners are being treated properly, being fed, complaints are being addressed. So this greeter is going to be strategically placed in the corridor area or the foyer area of the precinct so that they can easily greet the individuals coming into the particular precinct. So completely different.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah, in a world where shootings are still running at double their pace pre-pandemic, why is this the focus?
Because it's a great question, and I'm going to start, then I'm going to let the chief tee off on this because I know she will really have strong views. And I've talked to so many leaders at NYPD about what is the answer going forward. It is rebonding police and community. We had 6 years where we proved that if you deepen that relationship, you can drive down crime and create more unity, more dialogue at the same time. We did it with fewer arrests to boot. The pandemic disrupted everything in the life of the city profoundly. For years and years from now, we're going to be looking at the sheer massive, crucial societal impact that the global pandemic had. But we know, on top of everything else, it caused violence, shootings all over the nation to rise, unacceptable levels that must be reversed, and also created a dynamic where there's tremendous tension between police and community. Reversing that, creating that bond again, creating the flow of information, the cooperation, the understanding, is absolutely prerequisite to being as safe as we need to be. And every single step, whether it's community being involved in the choice of the precinct commander, whether it's precinct commanders and other leadership looking more like New York City, whether it's community guides who give people a better experience when they go to a precinct, every one of these pieces combines to create the bond we need that will actually get us safer. So there's my intro. Take it away, Chief. Go to town.
So we are always focused on violence. That's at the top of the list. And I sit here not happy about one shooting, but I am a little bit happier about where we were at the first quarter of the year when we were taking a lot of shootings to where we are now, right? And still, one shooting is one too many. One homicide is one too many. We are always focused on that, and our focus, I think, is in the right areas. But by no means are we just simply an occupying force. We need community relationships. We can have all the technology we want. It may capture some things, it may not. If we don't have a relationship with the community, with them having faith and trust in a public safety system, coming in, sharing information, giving us information proactively, then it's never going to be a success for New York City. Community solution is the ultimate success for New York City and to keep people safe. And that's what our government partners, as well as our crisis management teams, it takes a whole city to keep this city safe. So by no means, because we're focused on the community, we can't focus on, if you think we can't focus simultaneously on gun violence, you're truly mistaken. We have our eyes on both areas, which are equally important.
Amen. Well said, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Rebecca. You're starting something new and powerful. And one of the things we do as New Yorkers is we do new things. We're never afraid to go and find the thing that's going to work, the thing that's different. Again, this is a part of shifting this paradigm for the long-term safety of New Yorkers, and that is how we create a recovery for all of us. Thank you, everyone.